2018, a draft version of the proposed amendments to the Firearms Act was leaked. The draft caused quite an uproar. It proposed banning the ownership of a firearm for self-defense purposes. The South African government then assured firearm owners that it was just a draft version and nothing to be concerned about. However, it became clear in 2021 that this was not the case when the official proposed amendments were made available for public comment. An average of 58 people are murdered every day in South Africa, and the National Police Commissioner has openly admitted that the police force cannot fulfill their mandate, leaving citizens to fend for themselves. Even though the vast majority of gun crime is committed using illegally obtained firearms, government is pushing ahead to try and amend the Firearms Control Act. In this episode of 8 Levels of Control, we look at the ANC government's plans to disarm its law-abiding citizens. The South African Police Service's average response time to an emergency is 19 minutes. In many cases, police officers arrive hours or days later, if at all. This leaves citizens to fend for themselves. This was again the case during the recent large-scale unrest in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, when citizens were forced to blockade their own neighborhoods and fight off violent looters. The police simply was not able to bring an end to the chaos. Under these circumstances, it is unthinkable why any government would want to disarm law-abiding citizens when it has failed miserably to enforce the law. The Minister of Police, Cele, has made numerous claims about gun violence in South Africa, which experts find quite laughable. For example, Cele claims that legally owned firearms are often used to commit crimes. This claim is not supported by the police's own crime statistics. The minister also conveniently ignores the fact that his department has lost more than 26,000 firearms between 2005 and 2017. More than 1 million rounds of ammunition in police custody also went missing during the recent unrest in KwaZulu-Natal.
But if you are hungry, this is not what you steal. This is 1,000 rounds of ammunition, live ammunition of that. This is one box, this is a second box, and this is a bigger box which has been opened.
The stolen ammunition has already been used in attacks on police officers. Cele also claims that legally owned firearms are often used in cases of domestic violence and must be banned. However, some female firearm owners say this move will just exacerbate the problem.
We want women to take back ownership of their own safety. We know that the police's mandate is stretched, overstretched, they say. 1 policeman to every 411 citizens. That's not going to work. That's not going to work for women and gender-based violence. For me, this bill is all sorts of wrong. And disarming legally licensed citizens is just not right, especially when you're incapable of protecting us. Women at best, the most vulnerable citizens of this country, are getting slaughtered every day in the streets of South Africa. This is not a black and white issue. This is not a white male issue. This is not whatever issue you want to put on the table. This is an issue about gender-based violence and it being promoted by this bill. The president, I said, spoke about the second pandemic. This is the second pandemic that they are perpetuating. They're enabling this second pandemic. And that's why I decided that the fight is not about to just talk about it, but stand up and actually do something about it.
The chairman of Gun Owners South Africa, Paul Oxley, agrees that government's reasons for the amendments make no sense.
This particular bill that's been presented to us attacks every aspect of firearm ownership in the country. It eliminates collecting as a category, which is bizarre. I don't think a collector's firearm has ever been used for commission of any crime whatsoever. It seeks to re-regulate black powder firearms, muzzle loaders. I think the last time muzzle loaders were used in anger or for criminal purposes was in the 1800s. They're trying to do everything all at once. They're trying to kill sport shooting and hunting by making reloading of ammunition unlawful. I think the ANC has a hell of a lot of introspection to do. They claim to be the representatives of the people, They need to tell us exactly which people they represent, because they certainly don't represent most South Africans in this. The groundswell of support acting against this bill particularly is enormous. It's also ushering us into a position where we're able to say this is what we actually should be looking at and present our own legislation to Parliament. And we believe that this will be very well supported universally. Part of the problem is the police are entirely incapable of managing the Firearms Control Administration. They're not an administrative service, they're a policing service, damn it. How they got in charge of running an administration is beyond me. It's not, nowhere are they given that power in terms of legislation. They have assumed that role for themselves. This has to be taken away from them and placed with somebody who actually can administer firearms legislation.
The hypocrisy in politicians wanting to disarm South African citizens has often been pointed out. Take the Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, for instance. Cele hardly goes anywhere without an entourage of heavily armed bodyguards. The chances that he'd ever have to personally defend himself or his family are slim. Unlike Henny Niemand, who had to defend himself and his 2-year-old daughter against an attacker who was armed with a stolen police-issued firearm.
Just before 6 on the 21st of August 2020, my foreman called me and told me there was an incident. The tire on the bakkie was flat and I must come and help them. So I told them, okay, right, I'll be right there. And I went. So just as I went out the door, my daughter asked if she can come along. I said, yeah, we won't be long. And also my cousin asked if he can come along. And I said, yeah, come on, we won't be long. And we went up to the camp. It's about 4 kilometers from the house. And as I stopped there, I opened the door. I saw my 2 foremen in the kraal with the cattle. I thought they were counting them. As I opened the door, something caught my eye out of my left-hand side, and I saw a guy running towards me with a gun next to his head, running towards me. So I jumped out the car, kneeled behind the door, used the door as covering, pulled my gun. As I looked out of the door to see what's going on, his first shot rang. I shot back. About 6, 7, 8 shots, I can't remember. In the incident, I was shot in the chest. It went through my stomach. It went through my stomach, my spleen, my pancreas. It shot off my kidney was shot loose from the body, so they just reattached it with fat from my stomach. So yeah, I was shot then. So at the last shot that I took, he let the weapon fall and it fell over. I reloaded the gun to see if he doesn't have some accomplices, which thank God he didn't. He was alone. I don't know, according to the stories there were 3, but I saw only him. I went around to see if he's not a threat anymore, and then I went to my daughter to see if she's all right. She was calm, and yeah, I can only thank the Lord that she didn't keep on anything from that incident.
Henny, what do you think would have happened that day if you weren't armed?
No, he would have shot me. He would have killed me. He didn't try to hide his face. I knew him. Not knew him, I knew of him. He didn't try to hide his face. He didn't try to hide the gun. He didn't say a word to me, not even one word to me. He just started shooting. So yeah, his intentions was clear as day. He tried to kill me.
Firearm activist Gideon Joubert says that research makes it clear that South Africa's existing strict gun laws do not prevent criminals from obtaining firearms.
Absolutely not. And it's not just my opinion. And this is something that has been corroborated independently by several different sources. The first being the Wit School of Governance that was actually commissioned by the Civilian Secretariat of Police in December 2014 to investigate precisely this, as well as to investigate the efficacy of the Firearms Control Act in bringing down violent crime and crime in total over a 15-year period from 2000 to 2014. And the report's findings, conclusions, and recommendations run entirely contrary to that, in the sense that they found no evidence, or weak evidence at best, that the Firearms Control Act had any influence on violent crime rates, including the murder rate, and went so far as to say it was even powerless to have any meaningful influence on so-called firearm-dependent crimes, such as carjackings, truck hijackings, and so on.
The so-called Wits report that Hubert refers to caused a lot of controversy because the police refused to disclose the findings of the report for almost 6 years. They were eventually compelled to do so after threats of legal action. The report, which was commissioned by the police themselves, clearly indicate that stricter regulation of legally owned firearms has had no impact on crime levels. Even though government is aware of the findings presented by their own appointed researchers, it still wants to push ahead with even stricter firearm laws.
There is a humongous safety and security vacuum where the state is either ill-prepared, incapable, unwilling of actually intervening and fulfilling their constitutionally mandated duties, meaning that ordinary citizens like you and I are left in the lurch, in the sense of we are left in that vacuum, and we need to somehow be able to respond to that. And what has happened over the past week, or rather what has happened as of this period of tumultuousness, where there was violent rioting, looting, and general public violence, is ordinary citizens grabbed the guns, they coordinated between themselves, private security, and in many cases worked hand in hand and alongside law enforcement. They secured their communities, they secured their businesses, and they did so with a great level of discipline, decorum, and effectiveness, which kind of illustrates the thing that we've been saying all along, is that, you know, you're always the first responder to your personal emergency. Nobody else is coming to save you. Now, if we imagine, had these people been disarmed and incapable of using the appropriate equipment for these tasks, the amount of loss of life and destruction, in my opinion, would have been far worse than what we have. And thankfully, these citizens were as successful as they were to mitigate this disaster and this crisis to the extent they could.
Government is also pushing to amend South Africa's constitution to allow for the expropriation of privately owned property without compensation. Some speculate that disarming citizens is simply an effort to prevent resistance when the state starts expropriating citizens' properties. The leader of the Freedom Front Plus, one of South Africa's political parties, Dr. Pieter Groenewald, says the ANC has been planning to disarm legal gun owners for a long time.
I think the motivation is actually twofold. Firstly, we must remember that when the ANC came into power in the beginning of the 2000s, they started with new firearms legislation. That's why we have the legislation what we have at the moment. And of course, now they want to amend it. So there must be no doubt that as far as the government is concerned, they started a process where they actually want to disarm the people of South Africa. It's on record. Even the Minister Natim Tetwa, when he was the Minister of Police, when they introduced the new firearms legislation, was on record where he said that they want to take the firearms away from the people on the streets. Now, we can look at other political figures. Let's take, for instance, the present Minister for Police, Bekitsele. He already said in 2018 that if he can have his will, then no private persons will be able to have a firearm. So it is twofold that they want to disarm us. The second one is that because of the chaos in the firearms register, they want to reduce the administration. In fact, this is nothing else than a smokescreen for their own incompetency and dismanagement of firearms in South Africa. The most important thing is, it doesn't matter with what statistics they come forward. If criminals in South Africa know that the ordinary people don't have firearms, it will be a paradise for them.
The South African civil rights organisation AfriForum is pushing back against government's aims to disarm citizens. The organisation says that the police's inability to perform its duties has compelled citizens to take control of their own security.
So the communities started to look in the direction of their safety structures locally, as well as their security companies, to come to their aid should there be an emergency. But unfortunately, the security companies and the community safety structures cannot immediately be there when you or your family are attacked by assailants. And to take away someone's right to have a firearm to protect himself or his family while waiting for additional help is simply ludicrous. The next very important topic is with regards to the hunters and the sport shooters, where the amendment seeks to take away their privilege to load ammunition and to do their own load developments, and then to further regulate what kind of ammunition can be sold and what kind of ammunition can be exported and imported. And when looking back at the unrest period again, it's ironic to see that the police ran out of ammunition and they looked into the direction of ordinary citizens with the capabilities to reload to help them with ammunition to fight off the strikers during the unrest. So that's a very big concern. So we have a Minister of Police who keeps on telling the citizens of the country, it's because you guys, you law-abiding citizens who are legal firearm owners, you are the reason why the crime is out of hand. You are the reason why crime is rising every year. But he kept this report away, because the report simply shows that it's actually the police who is not strong enough, who does not comply with the definitions in this report.
The recent violence and looting in parts of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng has once again shown that government's arguments for disarming law-abiding citizens are unfounded, and it has also proven that the citizens' last line of defense are the citizens themselves.